All right, for more on this, we're now being joined by Collins Chong, UK China Affairs Strategy and Security Expert, to discuss this further. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on World DNA.
Thank you. Good morning.
Sir, of course, I want to begin with this. Tensions between China and Taiwan, as you know, of course, are reaching a boiling point. And now latest report claims that China is preparing to send a fleet of ferries to invade Taiwan. This comes after China, of course, staged military drills, as we mentioned, around Taiwan. The question being, should Taiwan and the West now, considering how things are unfolding, be wary of China's civilian ferries likely to be used as their invasion fleet?
Yeah, we have seen how China has incorporated the private sector for the past many years, at least for the past 5 years now, that we have seen how civilian ferries are being used and a lot of modifications to, having this dual usage, both for civilian and military users. And we have seen how the Chinese concept of military-civil fusion. And of course, this is not new. And of course, the Americans have been well aware of the potentiality of China using that as an added advantage to the option of invading Taiwan. But we also see a lot of limitations in terms of those being, having a greater advantage to China. We have seen how Taiwan's geographical advantage on the east of Taiwan, as well as on the west of Taiwan, along the Taiwan Strait. We have seen how the combined forces of the US, possibly Japan, and allies in the region, putting all these civilian vessels, civilian assets of China at risk. Of course, we have also seen how China has consolidated its, whole of all of nation approach in terms of having its own destroyers, frigates, and submarines in protecting these civilian vessels. And of course, after destroying Taiwan's, defense, coastal defense capacities, but we have seen how amphibious assaults, amphibious landings are so complex, and it is difficult to see how the usage of these civilian vessels might have an added advantage for China, seeing how the combined deterrence and combined efforts by the US in deterring this, potential advantage being given by the vessels.
Right. So you speak of how amphibious landing is complex, and China lacks the amphibious transport capacity which is required to conduct a cross-strait invasion. And thus, according to reports, it now relies on these civilian ferries. Talk to us more about China's quasi-civilian strategy against conventional military deterrence of other countries like Japan and the US.
Yes, we have seen how also the usage of its Coast Guard capacities, especially in the recent drill, we have seen now the Coast Guard being used for the first time. And of course, it has been used in South China Sea dispute for many years now. And whenever there's a real-time conflict, of course, China will use that to its own advantage, incorporating all elements that will give them the ultimate advantage during a real-time scenario of a conflict. But we have seen how conventional powers, and we cannot underestimate the capacities of self-defense by Taiwan, and the fact that China has not fought a war since the war in Vietnam, and lacking all this real-time military advantage in terms of planning for real-time scenarios, of which the US has clear advantage in this scenario.
Right, sir. In fact, I just want to bring this information in as well that we're just getting right now. Taipei said that it had detected 21 Chinese military aircraft, 15 Navy or Coast Guard vessels around Taiwan in the past 24 hours. And of course, as I mentioned, this after Beijing encircled the island in a massive military drill. That being said, how do you assess the situation? It's evolved since Lai Ching-te's swearing in. And do you think perhaps now there could be a timeline on what China plans to do with regard to Taiwan now?
Well, we have seen earlier reports that the US has estimated that by 2027, Taiwan will be the ultimate aim, by China in terms of, a full takeover. But then we have seen also this is an early warning to Lai Ching-te, and mainly for his inaugural speech, or his inauguration ceremony, where, there have been arguments that he has not followed the footsteps of his predecessor during the first inauguration speech in 2016 of, aligning with the 1992 consensus. And because of this misstep, and because of his own, legacy of having this pro-independence, capacity, and China will need to have this strong message to be given to Lai Ching-te, and also, of course, to the DPP. But then we have also seen how this is also as testing the water kind of move by China in seeing how the US will respond. And seeing this lack of response during Pelosi's visit when he conducted this massive drill, and now it needs to have space for future escalation in terms of pressure and pressuring tactics and campaign. And this is how it is a common tactic that we have seen how China will use it in the future.
Right, Mr. Chong, thank you so much for taking our time and joining us here on World DNA with your insights.
Thank you. Thank you.